So welcome to the channel, it's your boy EO here. So I'm someone who shares their reflection to inspire people to move to the African continent, to Kenya, to live a better lifestyle. So yeah, let's get to the video. So the question is, do we really know Kikuyu women? So recently I was reading my comments. So I decided to do my own research and I came across this video. I'm going to put it on the screen up here. So yeah, I watched the video and instantly it changed my perception on how I see Kikuyu women. So when I was watching the video, I realized that there are so many negative and bad comments about Kikuyu women, that, they're gold diggers, they don't look after their man, their husband. But obviously I knew that there are different types of women and not every woman is bad. This has affected the way people think about Kikuyu women because maybe they might have had a bad experience with Kikuyu women. I don't know, but it looks to me as if it's been that way for a long time. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the misconceptions that people have about Kikuyu women. So one of the common misconceptions is that they don't have time for their man. And from what I've seen and heard, it seems to me like they are career focused. They are always looking to work. For me, I see it as a positive because in the UK, I'm used to women that are lazy, that expect the man to do all the work and she doesn't have to contribute. That is how it's like in the UK. And for example, we've seen it with so many celebrities in the UK. Let's say a man has money, he's making millions of pounds, the woman could just be in a relationship with him and the next thing you know, she's taken all the money and ran away with it. So she's not really contributed to the relationship. And of course, it can happen anywhere in the world. It can happen in Kenya. It can happen in Africa. But you're mostly going to run into it in the UK, in the US, compared to Africa because of the way, the UK, the US is westernized. Is a westernized country where women don't have to do anything and they still win in life. That's just how it is in those countries. And, that is what has made me appreciate Kikuyu women because they are willing to do all the hard grafting, all the hard work to help the man in the relationship. I feel like this, as a man, this is what a man wishes for. They wish for a woman to, help out, not just be, like all those UK girls, all those US girls where they're just not contributing. No. This is what we value. This is one of the reasons why I would prefer to date in Kenya, in Africa, rather than the UK, because of the cultural differences, the way in Africa they value traditions, culture more, whereas in the UK, the US, there isn't really any culture. Like, it's just a bunch of people in a country just mixing up different cultures, basically. We have no culture in the UK, in the US. And that is one of the things that I think has impacted the dating scene in the US, in the UK. That is why men in the UK and the US are leaving. So another misconception that people have about Kikuyu women is they marry men for economic gain. So it's basically when a woman just marries you for your money and takes all your money. Yes, I think that this can be true in some ways, but like I said, not every woman is like that. Even if you go to other tribes, other ethnicities, you're going to experience the same thing. So come on, let's be real, right? Yes, they can marry you for money. They can marry you for fame, for money, whatever, you know? But what type of woman would want to date a broke guy? A guy that doesn't have any money, doesn't have a job, doesn't have a business? Let's be real. And do you know how most African women in Kenya, they expect you to pay for dates, for the Uber. You know, that is just the African way. We have to be providers. You know, in the relationship, we need to be the leader. And how can we do that in a position where we don't have any money? It doesn't make any sense because, you know, if you don't have money, how are you going to help out the family, you know? So that misconception of, you know, women dating for money, yes, I can understand it, but I don't see that as a bad thing about Kikuyu women. I think is actually a good thing because it motivates us to work on ourselves, to grow as a person, develop new skills. So I see it as a positive, you know, but most people might see it as a negative, and that's why they have the misconceptions that they have. This is something that you're gonna need to consider before coming to Africa, to Kenya. You know, if you know that you're a person that is very stingy or you don't like giving people money, then yeah, this is not the place for you, you know. Kenya is not going to be for you. Africa is not going to be for you because everyone is going to want a piece of you, you know. They're going to want this, they're going to want that. That is how Africa is. So if you're not used to it, you know, then I'm sorry, yeah, you might as well just go back to the US or the UK. Like, I don't know, okay? And yes, you can argue and be like, women need to contribute as well. Yes, they do need to contribute. You know, they can contribute by cooking, you know, looking after the kids, you know, cleaning the house, you know, traditional African stuff, basically. And if your girl is not doing that, or if you're dating a chick that is not doing those responsibilities, then I'm sorry to say this, you know, she might not be the girl for you or the chick for you. You know, she's not going to be a traditional, how do I say it, a traditional African Kenyan woman. So to reflect, why do I think Kikuyu women are not as bad as what people think? You know, they are actually good human beings. Well, this stems from my experience in the UK, you know, not being treated right, disrespected, you know, all these things, being flaked on, being left on red. And yes, of course, you can experience that anywhere you go in the world, you know, it's gonna happen. Yeah, it happens about 100% or maybe 99% of the time in the UK, in the US. So yeah, compared to what you're gonna experience abroad, yeah, you're not really gonna experience that. But Kikuyu women, yeah, are hardworking. Because they are hardworking, right? They're not gonna leave the man to dry, you know, to just dry and do all the work. So for example, if you're a man and you're working a job, right? It could be a job, a business. And from what I've seen, the Kikuyu woman, because she is hardworking and she's independent, that can be a benefit for a man, you know, working on themselves, because they're gonna have more time to work on themselves, to build a business, to do the things that they need to do to help the family, to improve their own life or their family life, you know, so they have the time to dedicate to themselves to become a better man. And that is one of the reasons why I think Kikuyu women are very valuable. I'm not saying that other women from other tribes, other ethnicities are not important. They are all important and they all serve their own purpose. But I think because of the level of independence and discipline, hard work that they put into the family and themselves, it can help a man on his journey to become a better person. So yeah, that's why I think they're very valuable, and personally why I would date one. So I know you guys are gonna hate me for this, but that's the truth, I mean, who wouldn't want to? So that's why I inspire people to come to Kenya, to come to Africa, especially men, because they get to experience a traditional African woman. It's not going to be like the UK where they're not traditional, or the US where they're just too masculine. So if you like this video and you want to be inspired to make the move to the African continent, to Kenya, make sure to subscribe, like the video if you haven't, and also comment down below what you think. Peace.